In today's episode of HR Visionaries, we talk to Jack from Nextworld. We talk about how to build a long-lasting relationship with future employees. Stay tuned. Welcome to HR Visionaries, where we unlock the secrets of modern HR. I'm Benjamin, your host. Join us as we shed light on today's HR universe with HR leaders and innovators from across the globe. Whether you're an HR pro, a business leader, or just curious about the future of work, this is your shortcut to the forefront of HR innovation. Brought to you by Hire, the AI talent attraction platform. Welcome to the latest episode of HR Visionaries. I'm very much looking forward to my guest today. Jack, it's great to have you on.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks, Ben.
Jack, can you tell us a bit about yourself? Who are you?
Yeah, so I am a head of talent acquisition for a company called Nextworld. Nextworld is a technology company based around it. Basically, we are helping to revolutionize, kind of look at how ERP works, and penetrate the market as more of a nimble option for individuals who are looking to add a platform that may touch on some of the different things that ERPs do, but maybe not looking to, rip and replace an ERP. Basically, it's a no-code platform that allows for a lot of adaptability. Now, me specifically, I deal with all the fun stuff, which is the people stuff, right? Being head of talent acquisition, I've been with Nextworld for 3 years now, and it's all about, can you bring in the best talent possible? Not only that, but are they the right cultural fit? Are they the right, do they have the right potential to become great? And when I say that, it doesn't necessarily always have to do with hard skills, technical skills, right? Software engineering, whatever it might be. It's really going to be based on, do they have the characteristics such as adaptability, curiosity, being someone who's humble, hungry, and smart. And so it's a fun challenge and something that I enjoy doing every day.
Well, I can imagine that, hiring in the last few years has been very volatile, right? So it has been probably also for you. A few years ago, everything was like super aggressive. Then last year, more people applying to jobs they had never applied for a few years before. So how were the last few years for you?
Yeah, roller coaster. That's a good word. It hasn't come without its challenges, right? I think the pandemic showed us that being highly adaptable and being someone who can look forward, trends change. That's why they're called trends. So right after, I think during the pandemic, you saw a lot of freezing of hiring. A lot of people, especially in human resources, all of a sudden said, whoa, am I going to be cut? Am I going to be let go? What's my future in this field even look like? Well, then, as you'll most likely recall, right after the pandemic ended, all of a sudden, boom, we can't get talent in the door fast enough, which was fun. But, for being a head of talent acquisition, here's really my few keys that are so important to me, and I think have made me successful, and I think would make anyone successful. Communications, which, having great communications, that doesn't really touch on this point, but trust building with candidates, with with hiring managers, with your stakeholders internally, with your company, whoever it may be. But the one that I really want to touch on, the third one, is candidate experience. So when you're hiring for such, volume, you can get lost. You can get lost in your data points of, am I hitting my numbers this month, this year, for our workforce planning, for our forecasting? These are people. So having a huge amount of hiring you have to figure out, how can I not only do this for our business and make sure that we're hiring? And so during that time, it was tough because you want to give the white glove, red carpet service to your candidates. But you really have to stop and think about how you do that if you're going to hire for scale. Well, then fast forward, and all of a sudden people realize they hired too much. So how do you then shift and go, well, we've got all these great talented people on board. We're all of a sudden freezing hiring. Now we need to get the most out of people that we did hire. We may even need to, do a workforce reduction, whatever that may be. Well, all of a sudden you become a steward of the company for, how do we do these things correctly? These things that may not be very fun, like letting people go. How do we continue to promote our brand through these tough times? So long story short, it's been very volatile. It's been very interesting. It's been filled with a ton of tough conversations, really great wins, really great people you meet. But in no way would I say it's been easy, right?
As a team lead, how do you communicate this volatility to your team members, given for them it's, well, roller coaster as well, and well, you're very, very close to the developments. You're closer to your own board, and well, you kind of know what's going on. You need to communicate the right amount of information to your people then.
Sure, and that's hard, right? Because you are on the fine line of being an entrusted guardian of the information that is helping to move the company forward, and you need to be a steward of the company, but at the same time you care about these people, the people on your team. And so I've always operated in the fact that I'm a glass half full guy, so I will always be optimistic and positive. However, I find that the absolute best way to go about a situation where people underneath you feel vulnerable is to be totally transparent, to help actively in ways that can help them to provide value in whatever situation you're in. We went through a hiring freeze for a certain period of time. I can't say, let's say, 6 to 8 months, right? As a lot of companies did in the tech space. It'd be very, very easy to kind of throw your hands up and say, well, what do I do? What do my team members do? This is going to be really hard. But the route that I wanted to take was to say, we have some really, really smart, some of the smartest people I know on this team. How can we provide value? Because as we just discussed, Ben, this is a trend, right? This isn't forever that a hiring freeze happens. What happens afterwards? You kind of have to look into your crystal ball a little bit. And so we started to say, okay, our onboarding procedures maybe aren't the best, right? They could be optimized. That doesn't take any open requisitions or headcount or hiring to work on the back end, so that not only team members can have a great experience boosting retention, but also so that they have the tools to ramp faster, be productive, and are able to, help the company earn revenue faster. So really thinking through the lens of, we're not just recruiters. We are holistic talent professionals. How can I dip my toes into, and how can we dip our toes into areas of the business that's going to provide value? And I think getting the people on my team thinking that way only serve them well in the future, right? They're not order takers. They can think for themselves and understand how their value can continue to grow in the organization, whether it's right in their direct job scope or not. And really, they did a lot of it, but having a leader that at least reinforces that mindset is important.
Absolutely, Jack. And I wanted to come back to one point you mentioned. So, not to understand correctly, but I think you said something like, well, in times when, well, hiring was slow and, well, we weren't too eager to onboard new people, you were looking at things like candidate experience, stuff that paid off or is paying off in the medium to long run. First of all, Did I understand you correctly there? And if so, how do you communicate this to your team and to your bosses that, well, in times when there is slowdown in hiring, you focus on how can I be ready for whenever the market is picking up?
Yeah, good question. So you did catch that correctly. And I think just another point to that, right, is during these times, it's not just Jack's got an idea of how we can provide value. There's conversations between myself and our executive team asking, because in HR, we all understand the business and the business objectives are most important. So getting them in line and having buy-in from them that there is a need and improvement and efficiencies that can happen in order to move the business forward, whether it's recruiting and adding talent or not. You have to look at all things in people, process, and systems, and can you improve those things? So people aside, right, maybe we've got the right team in place. What are our systems that we're using? Can we optimize those? And then what are our processes? Are they documented? Can we get those to an incredible place such as onboarding, so that when hiring does open up, we're a well-oiled machine. We're ready to rock and roll and start this. And all of a sudden you can start to kind of, see these processes that you've been working on during a slow time kicking in, providing value. Now there's still some uncertainty, right, in the moment. But if you can be a long-range thinker on how you can provide value, then all of a sudden you're kind of recession-proof almost to those tough times. You kind of promote yourself as a game changer in different areas. So hopefully, did that kind of answer your question?
Yes. So how do you make sure that you will become a long-term, long-range thinker? So I think one, in particular in crisis situation, people tend to be more like, okay, well, how am I going to survive this week? How am I going to survive this month? And well, actually, what one should do is exactly what you did, right? So focusing on like, okay, well, there's now a bit of a slowdown. We have a bit more time to work on projects that will benefit us greatly in the medium to long run. So let's focus on those.
Yeah. And that's an interesting question. It's something that can be built, and just like building muscle, right? You got to start somewhere. But I've always thought it very interesting. I think it's called the Eisenhower 4-box, right? You've got your important and urgent, which is the most important sector. Then you've got your unurgent, unimportant, which you can kind of leave alone. Your urgent, unimportant, which muddles up a lot of our time. But then you have the area of projects and stuff that is really important, but not urgent. So for me, I found it a very, for those creatives and thinkers and architects in the HR space, that box of the Eisenhower 4-box of the the most important, not urgent, all of a sudden, I don't have a lot of the minutia that I have to sift through of the day-to-day hiring, which it's not minutia, but it is your kind of, your churn of the recruiting cycle. Now all of a sudden you can focus on all of the really important stuff that you haven't had a chance to get to. So for me, I always kind of have a to-do list, right? You have your to-do list of the day of all the really important stuff, but in your mind or on a notepad, you should always have the to-do list of the really, really important stuff that you see on a day-to-day basis. And if you're anything like me, you have your day-to-day and you realize and you say, man, that system, that process is not the best, right? So you write it down. That system, that process could be tweaked a little bit, or that could be automated, or man, what if we added this? Well, this was a perfect time for me to pull out that future to-do list and obviously bring it to the executive team, say, hey, is this a need? Is this going to provide value? And as soon as I got the understanding from them, this is something they wanted, then we were able to run free and almost turn a time of uncertainty and vulnerability into a time where we could really empower ourselves to do a lot of the stuff that we didn't have time because we had all this urgent, unimportant stuff that we had to do. Hopefully that's not too abstract, but I just, being able to build, having the time and the gift of time to build out really great stuff is awesome. Now, I don't take for granted that not everybody is that way, and people's situations are different, right? And you could be worrying about your job, and you could be on the brink of a layoff. And I understand that, and I understand that those things are tough. But for me, and the way that I think, it became a time where I could really prove my value and stretch my skills outside of the day-to-day.
I find that so incredibly interesting because, when you think about it, there are so many topics when it comes to talent acquisition that are, in that box, right? So that are important and that are, however, not that urgent for, let's say, building up a talent pipeline, right? So I think no one in the TA space would disagree with, okay, building up a talent pipeline is important. However, when things are super busy, you don't have time. If things are not that busy, you may not have the resources to then, invest in building up a talent pipeline. So it's quite a challenge then sometimes.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I actually have always thought that the term talent pipeline, right? It's fun to throw around, fun to say, and people always want to do it.
Yeah.
But what is it, right? So my thing, I sat down with my team and I said, let's take a look at this, and we really mapped out what does building of a talent pipeline, a sustainable talent pipeline for the requisitions and the roles that we know we're going to be hiring for. Either they're evergreen, we're always needing them, right? Think sales, think certain levels of software engineering. But let's not make it a guess, right? Mm-hmm. Let's put some parameters around this. So we started thinking, okay, let's go ahead, let's figure out a system. What is the amount of new resumes that we'd like to source weekly, monthly? How do we allocate our time to do this? And then how do we follow up with the stakeholders, hiring managers, whoever might be interested in seeing these resumes or understanding the progress of our pipeline? How do we then put statistics and metrics in place to appease our own program that we're building? Because I think the best way for somebody in the talent or HR space to be able to impress, or at the very least show the progress of what they're doing and the value, is don't wait to be asked for metrics or statistics on what you're doing and if it's successful. Go ahead and start. And so that was a really cool aspect of, okay, everyone wants a talent pipeline. Let's build out and understand very specifically what we're going to go after, the talent, and then what metrics or checkpoints or triggers we can have to say, oh, it's Monday at 3:00. It's time to send out 10 messages to a certain group in the pipeline. And then what does that look like in terms of touch points with that candidate to keep them engaged? Because you can always hook somebody on a message and have a discussion. But what are those touch points? What's that conversation sound like? Do you tell them, hey, we don't have something open right now, but I want to tell you about this awesome company, this great, this really, game-changing type opportunity, but it's not open right now. However, if you're passively looking, this could be a great opportunity. And how about I reach out to you in 2 months? So I agree with you. I think, building out a talent pipeline, a system, a process, something repeatable, it's one of the better things that you can do, as long as you can keep doing it and you can stick to the system that you create.
Very true. I was wondering, what were your 3 learnings from in particular those times when things were really difficult. So what did you tell your team when a few years ago, I'm not sure how it was at Nextworld, but at many companies, well, an environment was like super grim. Well, places like California then suddenly experienced like super high unemployment rates. So how did you communicate with your team, and what were your key learnings from these times?
Sure. Well, and let me even take it back further. So the first person that I hired onto my team was about 6 months in at my tenure with Nextworld. And we had interviewed this individual, and I had let her know, hey, we're going to be pulling the trigger most likely here shortly. I actually was going on my honeymoon. So after I get back, I will give you a call, and we'll get this going. This is going to be great. Well, I get back from my honeymoon, and we had gone on a hiring freeze. So I did not want to let this person go. I thought they had all the characteristics and qualities that we needed for this role. We had a hiring freeze for that role for about 3 to 4 months.
Wow.
And so communications comes in, because it'd be very easy to, at that time, I'm a one-man shop, having to run a lot. I think seeing full picture and understanding from this individual's point of view what it can feel like to wait, and being on pins and needles, and the fact that they're looking and interviewing other places. Long story short, it was creating a cadence and a very, very transparent communication strategy of, hey, I'm just letting you know, 2 weeks later, a month later. Throughout the whole process, I wanted to get coffee with this individual. I wanted to let them know, be brutally transparent when the role wasn't, moving forward at that time. But then when that time came to offer that individual, I reached out to her, and, she had said, I've turned down multiple offers waiting for this. You've been so great throughout the process of keeping in touch with me, sharing the vision, continuing to keep me excited. And I can't wait to join the team. So we had already been through a situation prior to her even joining our team. But that relationship was built on incredibly transparent communication, trust. I never wanted to say, hey, the role should be open up soon, when in reality, I don't know. But then all of a sudden we get into tough times, right? And that foundation of being completely open and honest allowed us to then have tough conversations and very vulnerable, emotional type conversations. And I think that that's something that leaders who are maybe listening to this or whatever it might be need to understand, is it's okay to listen to a person as a person, understand their feelings, and respond to them as a person, not necessarily their leader. Because the amount of trust that you can build is incredibly paramount to the type of communication that you can have. So hopefully that's not too vague. I think the most important thing about communications, right, is that it's timely, it's concise, and it's to the point. There's no fluff, right? And I think maybe building on that, one of my favorite things, not favorite, but one of my key things is when you're giving hard feedback, don't ever give a compliment sandwich, right? You're doing this so well. Great job on that. But okay, by the way, you've got, an issue here, but you're doing really great in this. You want to hit them straight on with the hard hitting facts, let them know the type of value that it's going to bring them, and then set up a follow-up to discuss that feedback. And that's the same thing that I do with tough conversations that don't involve them, right? Maybe involve the company. Hey, listen, let's talk. our company's going through something, or in the tech sector, this is what's happening. This is our game plan to add value. What are your thoughts? Do you have any recommendations? Let's follow up blank, and I'll let you know of any additional information. But I truly believe that, and then whatever type of statement you want to make that's truthful and transparent about the situation. But it's really all about being genuinely yourself.
Jack, I was wondering, so after having talked so much about the past, and I think super interesting learnings we could all capture. I was wondering, so what's your outlook for talent acquisition over the next few years? So how do you think talent acquisition will change in the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years?
Sure. Well, obviously the big topic right now is AI, right? Artificial intelligence and all that it can do, especially in the human resources space. I think it's kind of an oxymoron, right? It's kind of funny that we're saying that artificial intelligence is going to be such a disruptor potentially to jobs or to individuals in professions within human resources. And as corny as it might sound, I think that the human part of human resources is so important. Now, my outlook is that AI is going to help in great ways, right? And they're, you're already seeing how administrative type of tasks can be cut down, and whether it's applicant tracking systems or HRIS type functionalities. LinkedIn, right, has create a message and it'll type it out for you and it'll pull things from people's. It's pretty incredible. Well, what I've found, and I think my hypothesis to this point is correct, is that people don't join a company based off of just how cool the product is, right? Or they join because of the people and the interaction. And I think one of my favorite quotes is, they'll never remember what you did, but people remember how you made them feel.
Mm-hmm.
So my outlook is AI is going to help to take away and reduce the amount of time that people in human resources works on the stuff that, not important and urgent, so that you can really focus on things like candidate experience and connecting. Because at the end of the day, that's why people join. They're not going to join because, hey, I'm so happy with the ATS that you have that, cuts down on the amount of, time for you to, it allows you to reach out quicker, which is awesome, right?
Yeah.
But they're going to say, man, I really enjoyed my time with Jack. He makes me feel comfortable during one of the hardest transitions in my life. And if he's, the head of talent acquisition for the company I might join, what is the rest of it must be full of great people, right? So I think that we're going to be in a great spot. Now, in terms of, the inflation and things of that nature, those are tough. And, but at the same time, just like we talked about earlier, the roller coaster will continue. But I see that these challenges that we've had these past few years are only going to make it better for us moving forward in terms of, in HR, in the tech space, or whatever space you're in, to be able to handle those challenges in the future. And hopefully you have better systems and processes you've been working on during this time, so that you can really focus on candidate experience, trust building, and communications.
Perfect. Jack, I have one last question for you. So if you had a question you would want to ask one of my future guests, what would it be?
Ooh. Does it have to be professionally based or?
Whatever.
Boy, that's a good question. I would want to ask, what got you into human resources talent, whatever it might be. And what do you think is the biggest plus that human resources can do in the professional landscape? And what keeps you coming back every day? I think that's an incredible question for people in this, because it's a very thankless job, right? But let me answer that question for you if I could. I love the relationships that I build with people, and I love being able to help people bridge the gap during a time where it's very, very unsettling to be changing jobs, right? So to make that as seamless and personal as possible, that's important to me. And I would love to know, kind of why other people love what they do and wake up and do it every day. So,
Jack, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. It was great to hear about what, well, you guys as an organization, what you personally learned in the last few years with all the ups and downs. Thank you so much. It was great talking to you.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on, Ben.
And thanks to all of you guys for listening in, and see you next time.